Welcome in, my friends. It is time yet again for another wonderful episode of the Cannabiz Conversations podcast. Today is a fun one because it's going to bring the beautiful magazines we have in front of us to life for the first time since the founder of this great magazine was the first person we ever had on this show almost 50 episodes ago. So it's going to be fun. We're going to get into it. But before we do, you know what we have to do. It's time to call out Hephaestus, House of Automation. Thank you so much for your sponsorship. And look, if you're looking for clean product to be automated into pre-roll systems that can create up to 2,000 joints an hour, you need to look no further than Hephaestus, House of Automation. Head over to HEFESTUS-tech.com to learn more. Hephaestus, House of Automation, we thank you. So today we're going to be having on the editor-in-chief, Fat Nugs Magazine, Jessica Reilly-Chevalier. How are you today?
That was beautiful. I am doing well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I'm glad we got the name right. It's a big pet peeve of mine. I try my hardest. Thank you so much for making the time. We're really excited. As always, Fat Nugs is on display here because we're huge fans of this. So, Jessica, the question we ask everybody, it's how we start every show. Tell us, what is your cannabis origin story?
Well, I came to cannabis a little bit later than a lot of people in this industry did. I was in my 20s and in college. Okay. And I had experience smoking cigars. And if you know anything about smoking cigars versus smoking weed and cigarettes, you know that you smoke cigars differently.
Yes.
But nobody had bothered to tell me since the age of 16 that you smoked cigars differently. I thought that's how you smoked everything. So when I was in college and I tried weed, I thought to myself, well, I just must be one of those people that it doesn't work for because I don't feel anything. Well, you don't tend to feel anything if you don't breathe anything in. So, it took me a little while to figure that one out. But once I figured out how to smoke, I was, number one, grateful that I didn't get addicted to cigarettes because I was smoking those wrong too. And two, very surprised the first time I got high to find out how calming it was.
Calming. I love the sound of that. Calming is an interesting phrase to associate because I think a lot of people, initially I think there's a lot of, anxiety, all this other stuff that comes around first time. Calming is a great word. That is the first. Look, we've done, like I said, we've done almost 50 of these and we've always had super interesting stories. Lately, we've been hearing about stories in other countries. Angela Pye was just on talking about, Hong Kong finding weed when she was 16. Before that, we had on folks talking about Israel. And I was like, man, I didn't realize growing up in the middle US, like what it was like. I just assumed other countries were even crazier against what we were against. So you're in your mid-20s, you're in college, your cigar smoking habit has turned you this way. Now you realize inhalation. First fun question, did you end up making a mistake when you went back to cigars at all? Because that's like the worst mistake one can make, right?
That's a fair question. I have not yet because it is so deeply ingrained in me. When I first started smoking cigars, I did make that mistake. I breathed it right in. And if you've ever smoked cigars, that's only something you do once. It is deeply, deeply unpleasant to inhale a cigar. So at this point in my smoking career, they're kind of like two different brain states. One of them you inhale very deeply and the other one, not at all. And I'm pretty good at that. But my husband, who was actually the person who brought me to cannabis because it was available, has a very hard time switching between the two and is not a fan of cigars because of how deeply ingrained the inhalation is in him.
That's the same problem I have. It's why I don't use cigars either. The only time we ever used cigars was to cut them with razors to get them cut open to put our weed back in them. So, that was never the play. But I'm slightly more interested. Sorry if it comes across sexist, but young women typically aren't associated with cigars. Tell me, where the fuck did that even start?
My father.
Okay.
My father had 3 daughters. I am the oldest of 3, and he's a big cigar smoker. And from the time I was about 15 or 16, I would go out there and I would say, Dad, can I have a puff? And about that age, he was like, yeah, you can have a puff. And then as I got older, it became something that we just shared. And, you know, you only have to be 18 in New York State to smoke cigars. So once I went off to college, it was something that I shared with my friends. You know, we'd go to the gas station, get a couple wood tip Black and Milds, and you'd smoke them outside your dorm at 2 a.m. after you came back from some frat parties. And it was like a little moment of like deep breathing, sober up a little bit. But I just insisted, you know, this was something my dad was interested in. It was something I was interested in. It was something my sisters were interested in, and he couldn't help but pass it down.
That's awesome. I love a good legacy story around anything, and that especially. I kind of figured that was probably the line we were going to go down, but the fact that we're there is really great. And it's funny, you know, I use cigarettes when I smoke cigarettes the same way. You know, after a little buzz was down, you know, close the day out, but then I would close all of that out with cannabis. Ultimately, so you find it in college. What's the relationship take you on next with cannabis? Does it become a focal point? Does it replace alcohol? What happens to you in your usage in college?
Yeah. So once I started smoking weed, it was really evident that the only reason I hadn't been smoking weed was because it just wasn't available to me. I have always been somebody who likes the act of smoking. That's why I got into cigars. That's why I got into cigarettes. So once I started smoking weed, I was like, hell yeah, I love this. But it was still pretty hard to get. You still had to know people. And I am just simply not somebody who can walk into a room and know who to get weed from. It's not one of my superpowers. So after I graduated and it became less available to me, I switched to cartridges because they help me sleep. I was a really, really poor sleeper. So after it was done being fun and party and social, and I was out living on my own, working a 9 to 5, my weed vapes would help me sleep every night. And that was the extent of my relationship with cannabis for a few years, was just end of the day, little hit on the vape to go to bed, until I started being able to get flower again in New York. And that's when my consumption really started growing, when I started appreciating the plant more, when I started diving deeper into what I liked about it. And it's just kind of taken over my life from there.
I love it. I love it. You talk about the, so I refer to myself as a legacy distributor. So it's something I grew up with. It's something that I was the plug for an entire community. Some of it, I'm happy I brought cannabis, but unfortunately I brought some other stuff with me. I'm not really glad I brought into the scene, but it was part of being in my position at the time and a young, impressionable kid. But one of the things that is apparently, according to my wife, and funny you say, because I haven't heard anybody else talk about it, is the superpower of being able to realize in a room where I need to go to get what it is that I'm after. So we were traveling to Jamaica, and we get off the airplane and they harass you in Jamaica, right? They're like, oh my God, here, buy it, you know? And so I was like, all right, I'll check it out. Guy leaves a quarter inside of a toilet, the top of a toilet. Like, it was this whole system, right? And I open it, and my wife and I were growers. I open the lid of the toilet. I take 2 seconds out. I go, fuck no. I'm like putting that thing back in the toilet. I walk out and she goes, you can't say no. I go, I ain't fucking saying yes. Like, this ain't a thing. That ain't weed I'm smoking. We aren't doing this. She's like, well, what do we do? So I said, don't worry. We'll get to the hotel and I'll find a cook. And she goes, a cook? I go, no matter where you go on planet Earth, go ask a cook where to score weed. So literally I walk up, the cook had come out. I said, hey, dude, real quick, where can I find the grass? He goes, go to your room in an hour. Someone will call you. Someone calls me. What are you looking for? Small, medium, large? I'm like, I'm here for a week. Any medium? Dude shows up, I'd say 30 minutes later, straight up stock. Not even just on the stock, still wet. And he's like, here you go. I'm like, okay.
Tried and cured.
Yeah, I got to cure it. I got to lay it out. I'm like, oh my God, thank God we're growers. Yeah, I got the blow dryer out trying to move things along and shit. But yeah, you know, we're in Jamaica for a week and fucking there it is, you know? But the cook, Jessica, never worried again.
Yeah, that is an inside tip. I'll remember that. And yep. I don't need to be that person because my husband is that person. When we were in a van trip, you know, around the US, we could walk into a room in any single state and he would know who to talk to. And I don't know. It's either the way I grew up or how late I got into weed, but I just walk in and I'm like, I don't know. It could be any of you. It could be none of you.
Yeah. My wife's the same way. My wife also a late bloomer in her 20s. You know, her and I met because I was the plug to her and her boyfriend. And so it's a whole long story. It's something I wanted to say in my vows, but I couldn't. So I had to like skirt around it. And telling the story in front of family and friends. Her and I have been together since year 23. So it's an always learning lesson, right? So with you though, I want to hear about this part, the van life, right? I don't want to get too far off, but the van life, it's always intrigued me because you guys, you guys have seen it. You guys have lived it. I'm pretty sure I've seen you in Alaska or thereabouts or in the way northwest. I know I've seen you in the South. I know I've seen you up in the East. So what motivated that concept of the van life? Was it truly a COVID move, or was it a move one had wanted to make and did anyways?
It predated COVID, not by a lot, but it was something I had come across in like late 2018, early 2019, when I was just really dissatisfied with where I was. My husband and I, he was then, my boyfriend, we had just moved in together. I was getting up every day, going to a 9 to 5. I wasn't making a lot of money. And I was right at the age where I was like, is this it? Like, is this all my life gets to be? It's like waking up and working for somebody else. And, I saw an Instagram reel or photo or something, and it just was like a little bug in my brain. So I ended up leaving my 9 to 5 in March of 2020 and starting my own company. It was very chaotic. We were moving at the time. We were doing renovations on where we were moving to. It was a whole thing. And it ended up taking us close to 4 years to make it happen. But in the meantime, I was building the business that I still run, Jessica Reilly Writer, in order to support myself, to support my household in the van. So we moved into the van about 6 months after we officially got married. We went to 38 states in total over the span of 18 months. And along the way, we visited every single legal cannabis market in the Northeast and a lot of them out West as well.
I mean, geez, how awesome. I mean, you guys, look, 6 months after getting married, getting the van, it's either going to bust this some bitch up or going to make it bonded for life. And
exactly.
It seems as if it's bonded for life. And I dig that. Yeah, it's funny. My wife, we were just dating. We were like 3 months into dating, and I bought a house when I was 20 years old, and she was renting, and my roommate moved out, and she's like, I'm going to get a place here. And I was like, really? She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, we've been together 90 days. Let's just do it. She's like, do it. She's like, you really want to do this? And yeah, and we did it. And that was it, and jumped in feet first without even really considering another option, because it didn't feel like there was one, right? It just felt like
at that point, like, it's make or break anyways, right? It's either going to work or it's not. You don't have to beat around the bush to find out. You're just going to go right to the chase and find out really quickly. And
to your point, I was 22 years old. I had already been in my house. I had a fever. I wanted to move. I wanted to do something with my life. She wanted to too. So we stayed at my place for another like 6 months, up and moved ourselves to Boulder, Colorado, and lived our lives. And really, for a solid 8 years. And in the cannabis scene, in the beginning of medical, we were growers, we were, caregivers. And this was back when I was banking with Chase Bank. I had a website. I used Google Ads. None of this stuff mattered then, because no one was looking, no one gave a shit, right?
Yep.
And I'm sure you saw a little bit of that as you start, in the background, but you notice now how much it's become just so, scanned, seed to sale. There's this whole big sort of piece of it all. It's been quite the move. What market were you most intrigued by? Did anyone stand out to you as like, that market's cool? Not for any particular reason, but just maybe a collection of reasons.
Yeah, there were a few of them. I loved Maine's market. I thought Maine had phenomenal prices, very fair prices on their flowers. And I loved the amount of diversity that they offered in their cannabinoid content in ratios. I remember this one time I picked up some bud that was 12% THC. And I was like, perfect, this will be like really good work weed. Well, let me tell you, I got smacked off my ass on a Monday morning and was like, I got to go take a walk in the woods because I can't look at my laptop right now. Like, holy shit, this is not work weed. And it was really reframing for me that, like, just because it says 12% does not mean it's going to be gentle. If the other cannabinoids are there, if the ratio is right, if the terpene potency is there.
Yeah.
So that was really a good lesson for me. Oregon, it's kind of a mess from the business side, but from the consumer side, like, you cannot beat the prices there.
No, you can't beat the prices, but I will say, so my wife and I, we did like a pilgrimage. We went to a wedding in like middle California, San Francisco area, and then decided to just drive straight north. And a week later, we'd fly out of Portland and we'd go home. And so along the way, we stopped, and we were in Oregon, and we stopped. And I remember walking into a dispensary, I-5 dispensary, I believe. I have a T-shirt upstairs, and we walk in, and this is the first time I saw like 47%, right? And as an old time smoker, I look at this number and I think to myself, come on, man.
That's
like
bullshit.
This is bullshit, like, and he's all like, he knows we're out of town because he's already checked our ID. So they're all like potency pushing. And you're like, hey guy, don't care. Like, I'm not interested. And
I might know more about this than you do.
Well, I approach the weed the same way you do, where I say to budtenders, look, I need work weed, okay, for like, your 9 to 5-er, and then I need bedtime. And if you got something that really specializes in my headaches, I'd appreciate it, because I go to headaches. I'm a migraine sufferer. Very early on in my life, I realized cannabis was much better than anything I could get, from a doctor. And so it's the way I roll. And so, yeah, most people are like, oh, then you need X or XB, whatever, with these, cannabinoids and terpenes. And that's a much greater discussion to be having with me as a consumer, Jessica, than 48%, right? Like, it makes more sense.
Yes, but let me tell you, I got my first Temple hash ball in Oregon. It was $16, which is like criminal to pay that little, because the hash was good.
It's funny. I just had on Matt Schiffer, and he runs a vertically integrated dispensary in Denver. And he was talking about how his pricing cratered in Colorado, right? As the OG market, it cratered. It was down, I think, like 44% or some crazy shit year over year. He's like, but the cool thing is things like hash balls, like whatever, the live resin has come to a place where it makes sense for everyone now. It's not $32 a gram, it's $16, and there's still margin on the back, there's still margin in the front, right? And so I like to hear that, and I think it's hard. All these markets will go through price compression. I live in a prohibition state surrounded by a non-prohibition states. Michigan, Minnesota, Illinois, all on, well, Minnesota's been a disaster, but Michigan, a great market. Illinois, have you been to Illinois, Jessica?
I have passed through Illinois. I have never bought weed there because I have heard abysmal things about their tax structure.
So, okay. Oh, all right. Good on the tax structure. I'm not really great about that stuff. Like, I just kind of, if I need my weed, I buy it, right? But
if you need it, you buy it.
What I do not like, and what I despise, and why I will not do business there, is because it's all automated screen work. There are no budtenders. There are no conversations. You either know what you want, or you have to guess, or you have to think, or you have to brand recognition. I hate it. I hate it. Now,
I noticed that when I went back to New York last time I was there. I'm in New Mexico now, which I only have phenomenal things to say about the cannabis market here, about the pricing, about the availability, about the structure of the businesses. But in New York, I walked into a dispensary and I was like, oh, good. It's an iPad dispensary.
It's lame.
Stand here and scroll.
It's lame, and I don't care if they're 2 feet tall. That doesn't make me feel any better. I don't really give a shit.
I feel overwhelmed.
Right, it's the same reason I don't play slots that are 10 feet tall. They freak me out. Like, give me the old school spinner shit. Like, I don't want all your screens, right? And Jessica, think about, for people who aren't in the business, if you will, or aren't around it, when they walk in, what's the guidance? What's the consumer experience? Like, it drives me fucking bad.
It's such a missed opportunity for consumer education in the name of efficiency.
But see, that's efficiency in name only, as far as I'm concerned, because I think it creates more backlog when people like me stand in front of an iPad and go, fuck, I don't know. I'm not really sure. And there's 3 people behind me who definitely know what they want. And it's like, sorry, not sorry. Like, I have no idea. Yeah. And this is, my turn in line.
There's hundreds of choices too. What is efficient is, last week I went into a dispensary in Santa Fe. I said I wanted a half gram pre-rolls, low THC, high CBD. They had 3 options. He pulled them all out for me. I bought the one I wanted. I was out of there.
See? And I was just in the UP in Michigan snowmobiling, and I was up there with my buddies, and I walked into a dispensary, and a beautiful dispensary on Native American land. So the newest tax increase did not apply to them. So we were super stoked about that portion. And the budtender couldn't have been more listening. He couldn't have been more attentive. He couldn't have been more present for us. And it says, what I loved about it is it's single use only. So it's only you and the budtender. There's not a line of people. There isn't more people. It is just a one-on-one environment with a waiting room. It was so cool. It was so cool. And in the same way you did it, I did it. Said, hey, this is what I need. This is what I'm after. This is what I want. And here you go, dude. Here's 2 options, 3 options. Here you go. Boom, boom, boom. Over, done with, 20 minutes. That's what I'm talking about, people. People who give a shit. So, Jessica, in your experience, the budtender can make a huge, huge difference, yeah?
Oh my God, yeah, absolutely. I think how your budtenders interact with customers can make or break the experience. I go in there, I don't always say what I do. I don't always say how much knowledge I have. Sometimes you just want to buy weed. You don't want the whole conversation.
You're right.
it puts me in an interesting position when they do try to potency push, or when they try to push, just the MSOs over the local brands, or when they don't want to engage with me at all. And I have questions and they're just kind of staring at me. And I'm like, wow, you're being a dick right now, dude, in a customer service position. And then you have dispensaries that you go into and the budtender's like, welcome, come on in. We're so excited to see you. Here's what we've got on sale. What are you looking at? This is what I really like. Like, when they're so engaging, it makes the experience better. Even when you know what you want, even when you just want to get in and get out, it makes the experience better to have somebody there who's genuinely happy to be selling weed.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of people forget it is a retail job. And so I grew up working retail jobs. I was in the men's clothing business. I was selling cars. I've been dealing with retail public my whole life, which is why I live in the middle of nowhere and interact with people via screen only, basically anymore. But what I've learned along the way is that this is a difficult position because there's so many assumptions that come with why you're in the business, what you do in the business. Oh, you're just sitting there, you're high. Why should I listen to you? You're not a doctor, blah, 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 blah. All the excuses people give. This is a hard job, Jessica, to be a bud tender. You agree?
It is, because they put bud tenders in a really weird position, that they're supposed to have this like encyclopedic knowledge of cannabis and the endocannabinoid system and terpenes and the nuances of effects for men and women. Meanwhile, they're being paid minimum wage with probably very little training. Some of the best bud tenders are just people who do this because they're passionate about it and they educate themselves on their own time, not because the company is invested into their training.
Thank goodness. My gosh. I will say, and let's give a shout out, because I know this is a shared shout out. We give a shout out to Embark, because them folks invest in their people. They invest in their training. You want to learn about an operation that's doing shit right from front to back. Do yourself a favor and check out Lauren Carpenter and the Embark folks for sure.
Yes. Yeah, right? Absolutely. And you got to give Embark a shout out because they go to underserved Californian markets. They go to these small towns, especially in Northern California, that a lot of other dispensaries don't want to touch. Yeah. There's this like conception in the cannabis industry. I see this a lot in New Mexico, that the only place you need to be are the big towns, are the LAs, are the Sacramentos, are the New York cities. Meanwhile, you've got, 1 million people in the greater, this is, speculation, 1 million people in the greater Eureka area who don't have good access to cannabis because there's only Embark there to serve them. They don't have the kind of options that you have in LA. And even in LA, it's really limited because of their weird laws in California. Yeah. But people don't want to go to these smaller markets where you can develop better customer relationships, spend more time on the customer retention and customer loyalty. They just want to go to these big ticket cities where they can just cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching and get people in and out the door. And I see this a lot in New Mexico because there is not a lot of outside interest in the New Mexican market. The New Mexican market is made up almost entirely of New Mexican businesses, with a few exceptions of brands that have come in on a national level. And it's just because there's a very small population here. So there's this assumption that there's no money to be made. And it's not true. Rural communities deserve good access to cannabis as well.
And it's funny because, I do the snowmobile trip every year. We've been doing it for a decade. And this is the first year that this dispensary has been available. And it's just over the border from Wisconsin. As I say, it's on Native American land. They own the casino that we stay at. It's a whole bit up there. We're all glad to have the relationship. But I think to myself, what took so long? What took so long for someone to come up here? Well, what? Because to your point, the big brands wouldn't. The big brands had no interest in being in Waters Meat, Michigan. It is a population of 2,700 people. Most of it is seasonal. It doesn't. There are no big cities in the UP. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
But the Native American folks had a chance to have their own business structure, have their own dispensary. They did it. They did it right. They did it with a beautiful little building. Nothing's overdone, and it's something that I now see. The line was out the door, Jessica, and this was a Tuesday afternoon. Like, it was out of the door because all the guys snowmobiling in northern Wisconsin were like, hey, before we head out for the day, I got to drive up here, go do this, and I'll come back. And it was all Wisconsin, Illinois. There were no Michigan plates in this dispensary. And so, yeah, I love that. I love the minor market adjustment, because I think that's where you can make real inroads in loyalty. For sure. Yes.
And the cannabis industry likes to say that it's very expensive to get new consumers. The cannabis industry likes to say that 20% of your consumers will buy 80% of your product. Well, that is especially true in these small towns where you have people who've been smoking weed all their lives, and now it's easier than ever to get it. And they just want to go in, buy an ounce, and get out.
That's it. That's it. And that's totally true. And I like how you say it about that part of it, about it being, where is it accessible? Where can people get it? And then the lady who we were talking to, she's like, look, we actually weren't even intending on doing this here. We have our native land in Wisconsin, but Wisconsin dragged its feet too long that we just decided to open up because we had already been growers in the northern part of this region forever behind the scenes. We're legacy people trying to legitimize. And that's what you want to hear. And that's what you want to see. And frankly, their cannabis, it's great. Their bags have the cannabinoid printed. They have the CBD, CBG, CB, all that printed out. Like even if it's 0 on their bags, they're very transparent. I really love the Michigan market. I'm a fan. Maybe it's just because I'm limited in choices, but I'm a fan.
It's great to see that level of information offered to consumers, because so often you'll buy something, you'll buy an eighth or whatever, and all it'll tell you is the THC content. Like, is there any CBD? Even if there's not, like, shouldn't you talk about it? Shouldn't you talk about the other cannabinoids that are in this plant in such a way that it normalizes them in the conversation? So when consumers come in, they can say, hey, does this have any CBD? Does this have any CBG? I noticed last time the one I had 1.8% CBG and it made a big difference. I want to try more, or I didn't like it. I want to avoid that. It just gives people so much more information to customize their cannabis experience, because this plant is so customizable when you understand the compounds in your body.
So this is so true, because I just got, me and my wife were in Colorado, and so we were back and we stopped in. My buddy of mine referred me to a dispensary. He said I had to check out their 200 milligram gummies for bedtime. Okay. And I'm like, bro, what the fuck am I going to do with 200 milligrams? He goes, well, first of all, don't take a whole one. He goes, no one told me that. And it was on a golf trip in Hawaii. He's like, my friends had to come looking for me with hotel security because they thought I was dead, because it was almost 2 hours past when I was supposed to meet them. He's like, bro, I was out for 10 hours. Didn't even know it. And I said, all right, I won't do that. But it has the CBG or whatever, these other kind of compounds and cannabinoids that I'm not used to, because I'm an old smoker. So it's just THC, man. That's what we do. And when I see CBD, I get all like weirded out, but I don't know why. There's not like a real reason. I just think it's ingrained in me. But yeah, so I'm like, all right, this is going to affect my sleep. So the wife and I, we like cut it quarter, 50 is already pretty heavy hit 50, but see ya. I mean, 1 hour later, you're on the couch, you're like, boy, this is getting fucked up. And she's like, time to go to bed, boy. Next thing you know, you wake up, it's the next morning. But to your point, the compounds, the customization, I think you'd agree, Jessica, we haven't even scratched the surface on this plant because of the blockades that exist at a learning level and federal blah, blah, blah that has not allowed us to really dig into this plant.
Yes, and prohibition made potency the top issue. If you're risking life and limb to get this weed, it had better fucking get you high. Like, it had better be efficient and worth it. So nothing else really mattered. But there are over 100 cannabinoids in this plant. When we talk about THC, CBD, CBG, CBN, and CBC, that's 5 out of 100 cannabinoids. Like, there is such potential for this plant to be incredibly personalized medicine when we understand more about these compounds and the endocannabinoid system.
And that's what I learned. So Megan, I always butcher her last name. She's a nurse. She's super
Megan
awesome.
Mabenge.
There you go. She's all over LinkedIn. So I had her on the show a couple years ago with Cody Peterson. It was really fun. It was great. They're the best. And then I got to meet her. She went to the University of Wisconsin, and I got to meet her at a hemp fest thing going on. And I sat in one of her presentations, and she's talking about our own internal cannabinoid system. And I'm like, what's this chick talking about? Like, I just smoke weed. You know what I mean? Like, I don't get it. And so like listening to scientists like Cody or Jeff Rawson or her and people who are like into the science portion, as an old head, I'm intrigued, but sometimes I'm a bit overwhelmed by it all, because I just thought I smoked weed and got high. It turns out maybe in the future I'll be able to just like extract a certain strand that goes with my body and it'll just make that one thing work for me. Is that crazy to me or what?
I mean, it is kind of crazy, but like following Dr. Cody Peterson on LinkedIn, following Megan on LinkedIn is such a great way to start understanding cannabis on a deeper level, because they do get so granular with it. And Megan writes for Fat Nugs pretty regularly. I had the opportunity to work with Cody very personally at a publication called The Canigma, and learning from these people who are on the science side of it is truly mind-blowing, because when you understand how deeply the connection between the cannabis plant and humans goes, it is wholly undeniable undeniable that this plant is meant to help us. Not just get high and have fun, although that is great, but as medicine, as fibers, as textiles, as clothing, as this plant that pulls toxins out of our soil and makes our earth cleaner. We have had co-evolution with this plant for over 20,000 years. Even cows have not been around that long.
Think about that. Yeah, what's what frustrates me about where I live, the state of Wisconsin used to be one of the premier hemp exporters in the world. We have some of the best soil in the world. And here I am kind of stuck in this middle ground of, yes, I get the hemp. The problem with the hemp discussion is that what's happened around here, and if one more person tells me there's a dispensary open in downtown Madison, I'm going to freak the fuck out. Because it's what it's doing is it's bastardizing the discussion. It's sort of making it this way where it's like, well, it's all the same, dude. So just go buy your hemp, go buy your Delta 9s, and it is,
but it isn't, right? Like hemp and cannabis are the same plant from a botanical perspective, but like your synthesized D9 from CBD or from D8 or from D10 is 100% not the same chemical that you get from the cannabis plant when it grows it itself. Like these chemical interactions are so nuanced, and what we are doing to these compounds, making them into these little like Frankenstein creations, is so perverted to how it is supposed to be in our body that people go out, they buy these hemp D9 gummies that are 100 milligrams. They have no idea what that means. They take it, they see Satan, they have an awful night, and they're like, yeah, this is why weed needs to be illegal. Never knowing that they haven't really even had weed. They've had some weird like scientific concoction that very closely resembles weed.
Correct. And the science isn't even that good behind it. It's a lot more about what you can burn down to, you basically create something out of. And it's frustrating because the consumerism, I got people, I'm in a bowling league, so people know I'm the weed guy, and they always come up to me, hey Sean, I just went and bought these gummies. I'm like, what the fuck I'm like, did you look at what's in this? Like, yeah, no, it's THC. I'm like, no, there's not. None of that is in here. There's none of that in here. But yet the label on the front of the fucking bag, Jessica, says THC gummies. And there's this little fucking asterisk next to it. I've been in marketing my whole life. I know what that asterisk's about. Let me hunt that son of a bitch down, turn it over, and there it is. By THC, we mean compounds of things that were related to THC, but not necessarily THC. And so this girl in my league, she's like, oh yeah, it's 100 milligrams. I'm just going to take one. I'm like, the fuck you are. I'm like, you're not going to do that. No, you're a mother trying to get sleep. This ain't that, babe. This ain't that. Do not do this. Do not go down this road. She's like, what do I do? I'm like, well, we got to get you down to Illinois. We got to get you somewhere. If you're really trying to do something, I got to find you somewhere. So, Jessica, what advice do you have for folks who might be in those prohibition markets when being sort of positioned with, hey, hemp is the same, everything's fine. What say Jessica on that topic?
Please, please, please do your research. And I know that's not a popular answer right now. I know we want to type everything into AI and have the computers tell us how to think, but it is absolutely vital that you do your own research. And that is for two reasons. Number one, because marketers can lie to you in the hemp space. And they can tell you that things are THC when they're like kind of a CBD derivative, they're D8, they're D10, and it is incredibly confusing, especially if you don't have a scientific background. And number two, because cannabis is deeply personal. Your endocannabinoid system is as unique as your fingerprints. So how you react is not going to be how I react or how you react, Sean, or how your wife reacts or how my husband reacts. So doing your own research, you will start to get an internal feeling of, I'm being pulled towards this, or this is really sticking out to me for some reason. If you're on a border, cross over to a legal state, go talk to a bud tender, go to a real dispensary. These hemp stores can be phenomenal resources for people in prohibition states, but they can also be a vehicle for a lot of confusion. So it goes a long way when you can walk in there with a basic understanding of what you do and do not want. And what you do not want is chemically synthesized THC, D9.
I couldn't have said it better, folks. That's what I'm talking about right here. And this is a woman that lives it every single day. As all of you know, I'm in the background of cannabis. I make a living in automotive. I have this podcast to reach out, to tell founder stories, to tell people like Jessica stories. That's what I'm here for. This doesn't make us any money. We're not in it for the money. We're in it for the people and the time with those people. Jessica, that brings us to the final segment of our show, and that is the hot hit segment, which, yep, you guessed it, folks, brought to you by Hephaestus House of Automation. Look, they have the Aura X. It delivers the beautiful Dutch crown, and you can make 2,000 an hour. My hands hurt just thinking about it. So if you're an operator who thinks that's a good thing to have, and remember, it only takes one person to operate these systems for up to 2,000 joints. Sounds like it would make sense for you. Head over to Hephaestus, HEFESTUS-tech.com to learn more. Hephaestus, thank you so much for your trust and sponsorship on this season of the Cannabiz Conversation podcast. All right, hot hits, word association fun. Jessica, reschedule.
Don't.
Wait, was that don't or dumb?
Don't. Do not.
Right. Got it. Yeah, I was reading a LinkedIn post today. Actually, his name is Guy. I forget his last name.
Guy Rocourt?
It might be. He was talking. I think he's in maybe PR. I'm not positive, but he was talking about rescheduling and who's in the president's ear about rescheduling. What particular company of cannabis is in his ear, and why that should worry all of us. Not for the concept of 280E saves the world, more about who is pushing this to happen into Schedule 3. So do your research.
Let's take a little focus off 280E and a little more focus on who is going to control cannabis when it is rescheduled, because it's the FDA. And that's a whole other can of worms.
And that's a whole mess in itself. Like literally, my buddies who run breweries, I joke with them all the time. I'm like, hey, let me ask you something. If you had to take a scan of every fucking hop you just threw in, every hop you just threw in that barrel, how often would you make it? He's like, bro, I would not even be in the business. I'm like, exactly. I'll leave it with that, and you can have your business, and I'll wonder why ours is different. Thank you. All right, we're gonna get into the Fat Nugs portion here. What was last year's favorite magazine for you? That
is such a hard one.
I know.
I loved the travel issue that we put out. It's because I come from a background of travel and tourism PR. It's because I lived in a van for 18 months. It's because when I travel, I am a cannabis tourist. It is so interesting to me, the destinations that do and don't embrace this as a key piece of tourism. Like you said, like a brewery, like a distillery, like a winery, like a brew pub, So I love that addition for rounding up cannabis friendly destinations and really putting it all in one place, a resource where people can go to find destinations where they can go and smoke weed.
Look, it's what I use it for. It's like my wife and I are trying to plan out some, sure, in the States, but we're looking for some wider breadth, some more international travel. And again, what you guys put together, it's awesome. And not only is it beautiful, obviously, but it's so well written. And one thing that I tell everyone in any industry that I ever get asked to speak in is that the one thing that founders like myself or Dustin or other people, the one thing that we cannot train people who work with us is to give a shit about our brand like it's their own. And it appears to me that the Fat Nugs family all shares the give a shit about what we're trying to do here. And it's really special to watch from a distance.
Yes. And I have to give a special shout out to our designer, Christina, because she does such a phenomenal job with these print issues. I cannot wait for you to see the concentrates issue that we have coming out in just a few weeks. It is beautiful.
I can't wait. I've seen some of the teases. I've seen some of the trichome pictures. I've seen some of the things that Darrell, right? The photographer, is that right?
Yes, Darrell and Paula are two of our photographers who are heavily featured in this issue. Yeah. And Paula especially has taken macro photography to a level that I personally have never seen before. And this issue showcases it in such a beautiful way. I can't wait for people to see this.
You got me excited. I guess that's kind of going to be the that's kind of the next question. But what's next for Fat Nugs Magazine as we look forward to 26 here and we really get into it? What's on the horizon, Jessica? If anything you can share with us, I know Dustin and you guys are working on a lot behind the scenes. Any teaser you can give us of what we're looking forward to in the new year?
Yeah, we are working on so much. We want Fat Nugs to be the vehicle to amplify cannabis to its rightful place in society. And that means trying to be almost everywhere all the time. So you can expect more beautiful print editions. You can expect more fantastic digital content. You can expect more gorgeous weekly zines, more faces of cannabis at these events. But I would be remiss if I did not use this to put out a plea to the cannabis industry. We cannot do this alone. Fat Nugs does not exist in a silo. Cannabis media cannot support itself. And we have to have the support of people in this industry to continue doing what we are doing. And it's become harder this year than any other year past to get that financial support to get these issues out the door.
Yeah, as someone who's in the background of cannabis on the lending side, I can very much agree with you that this year, of the last 9 years I've been involved, is the 1 year I wish I would have gotten out 2 years ago. But here I am, and this is the way life goes, and these are the decisions we make. We're all adults. Yeah, people, please come on, get out and support this. Be a part of the solution. This product is so awesome. It belongs in any and every dispensary. Every time I go and I don't see it, I simply just say to the bud tender, man, you need Fat Nugs Magazine. What's that? Give them the website, go see it. I'm a huge fan. I love what you're all doing. Jessica, thank you so much for your time. You've been absolutely great. And I would love to have you back on in the future. Thank you so much.
That would be fantastic. Thanks for chatting with me, Sean. This was great.
Yeah. You're the best. I appreciate it. And if we will, remember, our goal here is to remove the stigma and uplift the plant, as Jessica said, to its rightful place in society. We got that idea from Dustin. He was the first one on the show, and he was the first one to say it. I said, you mind if I use it as my tag? He said, use it everywhere you go. And so it's printed on T-shirts that we have. It's everywhere we go. We're trying to do it, and we hope you all join us in that. And as we are on the way out, let's thank our friends at Hephaestus, House of Automation. Thank you so much for your sponsorship. We appreciate you. If you want to learn more about them and their awesome Aura X system, head over to Hephaestus, HEFESTUS-tech.com to learn more. Jessica, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everybody, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week on the show. It's going to be fun. We've only got about 4 left for the season, so make sure you don't miss them. Have a great week.